Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi. Okay. We'll just wait for the other student to also come in.
Okay,
But
sir.
we'll be starting chemistry. You have this book, no, McMurray and Fay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is going to be a standard textbook for the physical chemistry part, the basic part. After that, we'll do problem solving from other sources, but mostly first we'll be covering the theory, and that we'll learn from this book. And I will discuss how we are going to do chemistry. Let the other kid also come. Just hold on for 2 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Okay, actually, we should start. Maybe he's delayed or something. Okay, so the idea is chemistry basically has three parts. There is physical chemistry, and there is organic chemistry, and inorganic chemistry. Inorganic chem. So these are just rough classifications. These are very old classifications, but it's still relevant, so it's fine. So what happens here is in JE especially, the three parts are very equally split, in the sense that it's not like there is any extra weightage given to any other portion and less weightage to some portion. Okay, so what happens is that you have to prepare all three equally well, and there are flavors to preparing physical chemistry. Like there is a certain way in which you prepare physical and organic, and there is a certain way in which you prepare inorganic chemistry. So what we will be focusing on in our study is going to be, first of all, a set of standard textbooks, set of standard books that we will follow, because it is very easy to go wrong in chemistry preparation. Go wrong as in not have the concepts properly sorted, and therefore struggle to understand the connections between the subject, right? So
Yes,
If you
sir.
cannot see the connections between the subject and if you don't know the concepts really thoroughly, then what happens as a result of that is you will have to mug up everything, right? Which is
Yes,
impossible.
sir.
So mugging up chemistry for JEE is impossible, not possible. There is too much stuff. Okay. So what you need to go forward, think about chemistry is how can I understand it in such a way that all of these make sense and I can figure it out, right? So
Yes, sir.
that kind of understanding is going to be crucial. So what we will follow is McMurray-Fay for physical chemistry. So you might have the 6th or the 7th edition. Both editions are fine. Like doesn't matter.
Sir, I
Right?
have the 6th one.
Okay. So any
Yes,
of
sir.
this is fine. And in this McMurray-Fay book, what we will be doing is chapter numbers 1 to chapter number 18, 19 actually. Okay.
So
So
only 3 chapters?
no, chapter 1 to 19.
Oh, 1 to 19. Okay.
Yeah, actually we'll be doing 20 and 21 also. So might as well say that. So 20 and 21 also we'll be doing, but maybe not at a in the first attempt only. Chapter 1 to chapter 21 we have to do. Okay. Chapter 21 I am referring to metals and solid state materials. Is that the
Yes, sir.
same chapter in your book?
So I'll just check. No, sir. Chapter 20 or 21, sir?
Which is the metals and solid state materials?
So that's chapter 20.
So chapter 20 in 6th edition, it is 21 in 7th edition. That's fine. Right.
Okay.
So, okay. So we want to cover from chapter 1 to chapter 20, McMurray-Fay, okay, for physical chemistry. For organic chemistry, what we will be using is Claydon, Jonathan Claydon and John Greaves. Claydon and Greaves. I think I've already told you to buy this one, right?
Yes, sir. I have already bought it.
Okay, okay. So that is the 2nd edition of that book, no?
Sir, I'll
Second,
just check and come.
yeah. Ahan, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Sorry, I joined a bit late.
Yeah, it's fine. So what we are discussing is how we are going to prepare chemistry. The idea is that it is split into 3 parts, okay? Physical, organic and inorganic. So for physical chemistry, we'll be following this standard textbook, McMurray and Fay. You have that, right?
Yes, I'll just go get the books 1 second.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. 2nd edition.
Claydon and Greaves 2nd edition is the standard textbook that we will be using. There are many other nice books also in the market, but the idea is to stick to your standard book, your base book, right? Like you are going to focus on one book and master it. Like know everything in that book, right? So that is the idea. So therefore we'll be focusing on one standard book for each, and for inorganic we'll be focusing on J.D. Lee, Concise Inorganic Chemistry. Concise Inorganic Chemistry. That is the inorganic chemistry standard book. So these 3 books, if we can learn properly and if we can figure out what is going on, then our preparation for JEE will be sorted. There will be not much that will be missing. Okay. Apart from this, what we'll be doing is also NCERT 11th and 12th textbooks specifically for JEE mains. Specifically for JEE mains, you need to prepare NCERT 11th and 12th books very well. Okay. Because JEE mains exam, which is by the way happening right now, like yesterday and today also. So JEE mains exam focuses on the NCERT textbooks. So, however, what our priority is and our objective here while doing these books is to prepare for JEE Advanced, right? So JEE Advanced will not, the NCERT books will not be sufficient for JEE Advanced. Okay. So apart from this, apart from these books, we might do a few other problem books like that. I will share with you later. So Narendra Avasthi has a set of problems in physical chemistry and all. And we will go for those books only when once our concepts are sorted from here, right? Is everyone understanding what I'm saying? So there are some
Yes, sir.
problem solving books for JEEs Advanced specifically that we will do later. But first, the idea is to basically cover our standard books here. Okay. Then this organic chemistry here is about carbon and all, carbon and its compounds. Carbon and its compounds. Inorganic chemistry is about all the reactions of different elements and how they react and what are the trends in the reactivity, what are the properties of different elements and what types of compounds do they make. So inorganic chemistry is very factual. Like you need to know a lot here. Like knowledge is more important here. Here, organic and physical chemistry concepts and problem solving is important. So this is some basic concepts. Physical chemistry is very close to physics, similar to physics. So there is a little bit of problem solving here as well in physical chemistry, where you will get a question where you'll have to figure out and find out the answer by actually solving some equations and all, right? So that will be similar to physics. So it is actually the easiest portion. Like this physical chemistry, it is very easy to do it really well and be able to solve a lot of problems in physical chemistry. So our focus will be physical plus organic right now in the beginning. Like for the next 1 year at least, we'll be doing this physical and organic chemistry. Okay. So inorganic chemistry will come in later. We'll do inorganic chemistry only towards the end of our preparation. So sometime next year, April, May, we'll be doing inorganic. But before that, our hope is to try and do as much organic plus physical chemistry. Okay. So around 20 chapters or so are there that we want to cover in McMurray. Maybe slightly less than 20 because some of those chapters are very easy. And that is what our plan is. So both of you are present right now, no? Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So the idea is to begin with McMurray, and here the chapters that we'll be doing. So if you open your textbook, I will also look at mine and I'll just tell you which chapters we have to do right now. So chapter 1, I think, is tools, experimentation and measurement and all, right? For everyone, I think that will be same. Chapter 2 is atoms, molecules and ions. Chapter 3 is mass relationships in chemical reaction, right? So I will
Yes,
just
sir.
list down the chapters that we will be starting off with. Chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is reactions in aqueous solution. Chapter 5 is atoms, atomic structure. This is. So chapter 5 is very important. Atomic structure. Then chapter 6 will be ionic bonds, some trends in ionic bonds and all. Periodicity and compounds, periodic trends and bonding theory. Ionic bonds, right?
Yes, sir.
Chapter 6, ionic bonds. Chapter 7, covalent bonds. So ionic, covalent. So chapter 6 and 7 are basically together called chemical bonding, right? We are covering all of chemical bonding in this. So this is the introductory portion of the chemistry, which is valid everywhere. Like this portion of the chemistry textbook will be useful for all of chemistry, right? So you can talk about it as part 1. You can think of it. Okay. And then chapter 8 onwards, right? Chapter 8 onwards, for you guys, it will be thermochemistry, right? Chapter 8. Correct.
So it's gases, their properties and behavior.
That is
Yes,
just
sir.
an
That's the 8th chapter.
just the order is changed. Chapter 9 is gases for in my edition, but that's fine, right? chapter 8 and chapter 9 are gases and thermochemistry, right?
So
And
chapter 9 is
Sir,
liquid,
chapter
solids,
9
and
is liquid,
phase
solid,
changes.
and phase changes.
fine. In my book, that is chapter 11, but that's fine. 9, 10, 11, basically liquid, solids, phase changes, liquid, solids, phase changes, and then there is solutions and their properties. There is a
Yes, sir.
chapter which is solutions and properties, right? That is chapter 11 for you or chapter 10 for you?
Sir, that's chapter 10.
That's chapter 10 for you, right? Okay. So where is gases for you guys? You guys, both of you have 6th edition or 7th edition?
Sir, I have 6.
Even I have 6.
Okay, so both of you have the common thing, no? So after that there will be chemical kinetics. So don't worry about chapter number. It's the name, the chapter topics that are important. Chemical kinetics, chemical equilibrium, right? And then there will be ionic equilibrium. Ionic equilibrium, that will be basically acid. That might be split into two parts: acids and bases, and aqueous and aqueous equilibria has 2 chapters, right? 15 and 16 or something like that, right? Chapter
So one is
15,
acids and bases, one is applications.
exactly. So chapter 15, that is all covered under ionic equilibrium. So acids and bases, and one is applications. Cool. So this section is the core of physical chemistry. So this is our part 2. Okay. So part 1 and part 2, these are the 2 parts that we will cover before we move on to organic chemistry. So after that, after this applications of aqueous equilibria, there will be another chapter on, I think, thermodynamics, right? And then there will be electrochemistry, nuclear chemistry, transition elements. These are the remaining 4 or 5 chapters we'll do after, later. Okay.
Sir, what's thermochemistry?
Thermochemistry and all, there is one chapter, chemical energy and all, no, chapter 8 or 9 for you. Just check the contents. There will be chemical energetics or thermochemistry and all in chapter 8, right? 8 or 9.
So there's no thermochemistry.
So that will be chapter 16.
Yes, sir, we don't have thermochemistry.
That will be chapter 16 for you then. Check
So
chapter
that's
16.
electrochemistry.
Sir, we have electrochemistry, not thermochemistry.
That is chapter 18.
So chapter 18 is main group elements.
So what is after applications of aqueous equilibria is what?
So thermodynamics, entropy, free energy, and
That's
equilibrium.
the same thing, no? Energy, I'm saying, no? Thermochemistry, thermodynamics, chemical energy it is, no? Right? That is the same thing. Okay. So this, in the 7th edition, this is broken up into 2 chapters, chapter 8 and chapter 17. So it will be covered at once. That's fine. So ultimately it is thermochemistry, gaseous state, liquid, solid. When is gaseous state coming for you?
Eighth one, I think.
Chapter 8. Okay. Okay. So basically the idea is that these portions, right? These chapters are the ones that are the main part of physical chemistry. Everything else that is left after that, we will do later. So basically the sequence of overall chemistry will be part 1 physical, then part 2 will be physical, will be chapter 8 onwards, and till chapter number 17 or 16, till thermodynamics. Okay. Then part 3 will be organic chemistry. So we'll start organic after that, organic chem. And hopefully we'll try and finish all of that from the Claydon book. And after that, we will revisit physical chemistry, the chapters that are in the book that are left till chapter 21 or so, 2021 till that. And then finally, part 5 is inorganic, where we'll do it from J.D. Lee book. Inorganic from J.D. Lee. So that's how the order of things will be. That's how we will be studying this chemistry thing. Now, the rough deadlines for us. This is till chapter 7, chemical bonding. Okay. First part, right? So first part, ideally, the main chapters in this are atomic structure and chemical bonding. So if you guys are putting in as much effort as I want you to, we will be able to get to atomic structure and chemical bonding quite fast. And hopefully by July, definitely we should be done with it. June, July. Okay, by June or July, we should be done with part 1. If that happens, then we have August, September, October, maybe 4 to 5 months. 4 to 5 months for this. So November, December is our deadline for part 2 to be over till chapter 17. And then this organic will take us till April, May types. Then the remaining bits we'll cover later. So the most important portions are these 3. So if you can master this, the rest of the stuff will happen very easily. Okay. So that I'm telling you all this so that you are going ahead already on your own, right? So you don't have to wait for me to teach you in a class and only then you can learn, right? The reason I have picked these textbooks is that at least McMurray-Fay, the textbook, right, is so well written that you can understand it on your own. Okay. So what I want you to do is go fast in this physical chemistry portion when we study, so that we can cover up a lot of syllabus quickly, because the chemistry syllabus is quite big. And if you haven't realized that yet, you can see the Claydon textbook, right? Have you both seen the Claydon textbook, the organic chem textbook? It's
Yes, sir.
1,000 pages plus, right? So it's a huge book. So we need more time to spend on organic chemistry. We need more time to prepare that. So therefore, we need to be able to finish this ideally by November. The physical chemistry part, which is the easy part, should be finished ideally before November. And then we can spend more time on that organic portion, which will take time to understand. The most difficult part of chemistry will be this part 3, where we will be doing organic chem. Okay. So that is the general idea of how we are going to prepare. Now we will just begin, and we'll begin with chapter number 2. Okay. So chapter number 2 for everyone is atoms, molecules, and ions, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So, okay. Both of you are able to hear me, right? Clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So atoms, molecules, and ions, chapter 2. So most of the concepts here you will already be aware of. However, we will discuss what is happening here. So first of all, can you distinguish between these 3 terms? Like, what is the difference between all these 3 terms? What are atoms?
The basic building blocks of matter.
Basic building block of matter, but how is that different from
They
molecule?
don't take part in chemical reactions.
Yeah, and they can't exist independently.
What can't exist independently?
Sir, atoms.
Atoms.
Atoms can't exist independently, but helium atom exists independently. So basically you are almost right. So you are saying that, but you have not come up on the key idea here, the crux of the idea of what is an atom, right? You have to say it properly. Like, almost you're correct. So helium atom can exist independently. Okay. So the definition cannot be that atoms cannot exist independently. basic building block of matter is correct, but how do you decide what is basic, right? For me, basic is 100,000 molecules. For you, basic is one atom. Who is right? You understand what I'm asking?
So is it the smallest indivisible part?
No, it is divisible because I know what is inside an atom. I can break an atom apart with energy and it will become electrons and protons. So the point is that the atom is the smallest part of matter that still retains the property of the element. The properties of the element. Basically, you can distinguish between elements, and this is the smallest part that you can distinguish. You understand what I'm saying here?
Yes, sir.
There is a difference between a hydrogen atom and a helium atom. Okay. And this is one hydrogen atom and one helium atom you can distinguish between. And nothing smaller than that you will be able to distinguish. If you go inside subatomic particles, no, every electron and every proton everywhere is identical. You understand? So the difference between hydrogen atom and helium atom is just that helium atom has 2 electrons here, and their nucleus is also different. Helium is 4,2He, right? So atomic number is 2, atomic mass is 4. So therefore there will be 2 protons, 2 neutrons and 2 electrons in this, and in this there will be 1,1H. So there will be 1 proton, 1 electron, right? That's all, right?
Yes, sir.
And chemically, the properties of hydrogen atom and helium atom are very different. Okay, and any other atom for that matter, chemically the properties of these atoms are very different. So when people started discovering chemistry and people started doing chemistry in the 1800s, first thing that they were doing was trying to figure out many reactions and finding out what is going to happen when you react something with something. Then the reason chemistry developed was that they try to figure out why is this reaction giving something else and some other reaction giving something else, right? So they wanted to figure patterns in reactions. That is what they wanted to understand. And basically they wanted to be able to predict what a reaction will do, predict what reactions will do, right? So to be able to predict that, first they thought about how to organize all the matter that they knew, and people like Mendeleev and all came up with elements. So they distinguished okay, oxygen is way different from carbon and carbon is different from nitrogen, and so they were able to distinguish between elements. So suppose by now we have discovered around 120 different elements, right? Now each of those elements has its own unique set of properties, right? And how
Yes,
you
sir.
should define atom is that it is the smallest part of matter, or the basic building block of matter, smallest, that still retains the properties of the element. Like there is a difference between hydrogen atom and helium atom and carbon atom, right? If you go smaller than that, it will not be any different, because everything is composed of, all of the atoms are composed of electrons, protons and neutrons, right? Correct. So this is the smallest distinguishable part of matter, right? You can say that. What is a molecule then? What is a molecule, guys?
So when atoms of the same element or different element combine to form, like combine to form a molecule.
Form bonds
And then
form
the
molecules.
properties of And then the
Okay.
properties of molecules may or may not be same as that of the atoms.
So that is information. That is correct. But again, the key idea about a molecule is what? This is related to the first idea that you were saying, that atoms will react and all, right? Atoms
So
atoms
molecules
will
take
react.
part in reactions.
Molecules will be stable and can exist on their own. Atoms will not be able to exist on their own, no, alone, because they are highly reactive. Atoms most likely will not be able to stay on their own, except for some atoms like helium and all. Helium, xenon, neon, argon, the noble gases atoms. Except for those, all atoms will be in some state which is not their basic state, because in their basic state they are highly reactive. You understand? Sodium alone will not exist like a sodium atom. Okay, it will exist as part of something. It will exist as a part of NaCl, maybe, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Carbon on its own will not exist. It will exist as part of a carbon chain, part of a long carbon chain, or part of CO2, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
So molecules are what the most common molecules are basically the most common compounds that you see, and they are stable and they can be existing on their own in nature, right? And it is obviously, whatever else you said was correct. It is formed by a combination of atoms, and the properties of the molecules might be completely different from the properties of the constituent atoms, right? So for example, the classic example is water. So hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is flammable. Hydrogen can burn very easily. Oxygen supports combustion. Without oxygen, nothing can burn. However, water is used to stop fires, right? Water's properties are completely different, correct? So atoms and molecules we have understood. Then the next thing that to think about is ions. So ions will come to later, because ions are pretty straightforward. Like when molecules break apart, sometimes they break apart into charged components, right? Those charged portions of molecules are called ions. So if you think of NaCl, if it splits, it will become Na plus and Cl minus, right? This is called a positive ion or a cation, sodium cation, and this is called a negatively charged ion and called an anion, chlorine anion, right? However, this part is not very crucial. What we need to understand is, if you look at the textbook, he starts off with the periodic table, right? Chemistry and the elements, and then he starts off with the periodic table. Elements and the periodic table in section 2.2, right? Just open the book and see what is
Yes,
happening,
yes, sir.
right? So elements and the periodic table. So now
So where is this? Which page?
section 2.2. So now, if you think about the periodic table, what is the periodic table? What do you know about it? Tell me. You have read about this periodic table in 10th grade and all, no? Basic stuff.
Yes, sir.
So what is this periodic table?
Sir, it organizes elements on the basis of their atomic number.
Yes.
Correct. But why do people do this? Why are people doing this organization?
To study its properties easily.
So that it's easier to study the properties and classify elements.
Easier to study the properties and classify elements. Okay. How does it become easier? Any idea? Why is it
Sir,
easy?
because there are patterns in the periodic table and then it becomes very
The
easy.
elements grouped together have similar properties, so it's easier to study them like as a whole, like as a part of a group.
Okay. So that is the idea. The problem was in the 1800s, there were so many new elements being discovered and so many hundreds of reactions, right? Like no normal person, if they wanted to study, would be able to remember all the things that can happen, right? So people needed some way to organize all of this information in a convenient manner so that any person can predict something about some element without having to do the reaction actually, right? So that was basically the effort that culminated in the creation of the periodic table. So first, however, there were many missteps in this effort. Okay, so periodic table did not come on its own in one step, right? Just hold on 1 second, I'm getting a call. Hello? Yeah, sorry. Uh, so what I'm saying is, when people started organizing the elements, right? First, they organized by atomic weight. Okay, atomic weight basically is what we now call as atomic mass. First, they organized and put everything in a line and in increasing order of atomic mass, but that didn't work. Okay, so the pattern was not formed. There was not very clear patterns, and there were some anomalies. Didn't work. There were other people also. Someone, Newland, gave a law of octaves. So basically, he predicted that there are set of 8 elements that behave in a varying manner, and then another 8 elements which will repeat those properties and so on. So many people did many types of organizations. Dobereiner gave a law of triads. The 3 elements are similar to each other, and the middle element will have properties intermediate between 2 others. So eventually, this atomic weight idea was much better than all of these ideas. And this was by Mendeleev, the Russian chemist, Dmitry Mendeleev. However, what happened, he was able to organize atoms. That time only around 50 or 60 atoms were 60 elements were known. He was able to organize the atoms in a nice pattern, and he was able to predict some of the properties using atomic weight. But in his periodic table, in Mendeleev's periodic table, there were, first of all, many holes. There were many holes because many of the elements were missing, and they had not yet been discovered. Many of the elements had not yet been discovered by his time. So there were gaps in his periodic table where he thought that there should be some element here, but we had never discovered an element like that yet. There were many holes. There were some predictions that were incorrect. Like he might have predicted a property for a certain metal, and that metal did not have that property. Things like that were there. Some incorrect predictions were there. So eventually people kept working, and what they realized is that instead of atomic mass, the better classification would be by atomic number. And this happened only when people eventually figured out the atomic structure, how atoms are arranged, how electrons are arranged in atom. So basically, once we learn chapter 5, it will become immediately clear why atomic number is a better way to organize elements in the periodic table. However, at this stage, it will be premature right now to try to understand why atomic number is giving the answer, right? So the reason atomic number matters more is because all atoms are neutral and the number of protons in the nucleus will be equal to the number of electrons in the atom, right? So if the number of protons are equal, and if you arrange all of the atoms which have same number of protons, then all of them will have the same number of electrons also, no? Correct. Suppose I make a group and I group them with the same atomic number, right? Actually same atomic number, no, but similar electronic structure, the atomic number will obviously increase, but the electronic structure is what matters. So if you are trying to understand chemical reactivity, what matters is patterns in electronic structure. Electronic structure is basically how the electrons are arranged in the atom's orbits, right? How they are arranged around that atom. Why is that important? The reason that is important is because electronic structure will influence chemical reactivity, will decide reactivity and how that particular atom will behave. So if electronic structure is what is deciding reactivity, then you will be able to make predictions about reactivity and the properties of elements only if you organize the elements according to their electronic structure. So that was the key understanding that people have had later, and finally we had our periodic table. The properties and the periodic trends that you will be able to predict from the table, we'll be studying as soon as we are done with chapter 5. Okay. However, this chapter is just a sort of an introduction to the whole subject. So he will explain about how the groups are, what are the groups, what are the periods, and so on. What are the elements in any of these particular groups. We will talk about all of these things in a little more detail right now. All of this might be completely familiar to both of you. So I'll not be spending too much time on this. Have you seen or heard about these things before? Both of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you look at the section here, he's talking about how Mendeleev predicted that two then unknown elements existed and might be found at some future time. He found some gaps in his periodic table. Furthermore, he predicted with remarkable accuracy what the properties of these unknown elements would be. The element immediately below aluminium, he called it gallium. So eventually gallium was discovered in 1875, which had exactly the properties that he predicted. And then element below silicon, and that was found to be germanium. In 1886 it was discovered. So all of this basically supported the idea that Mendeleev was on the right track when he was arranging atoms according to elements according to their atomic weight. So atomic weight arrangements was eventually abandoned, and eventually people did it on atomic number, but we'll come to that later. So this section is fairly straightforward and you already know many things. So you just read through this. There's nothing to discuss much here.
So I can't really find these pages. Where is it? I'm like on the chapter, but I'm not being able to find it exactly.
This is section 2.2, dude. Elements
we
and the
don't-
periodic table.
We don't have sections, I guess.
Home, are you able to find elements in the periodic table section?
So in section 3, like it
Section-
starts on page 5.
Okay, actually what I will do is I will share the edition that I am using. You guys have a physical book, yeah?
Yes, sir.
1 second. I will share the textbook that I'm using on an email later, because I couldn't find the 6th edition online version. So I'm using a 7th edition. It doesn't matter. You can read it. It's nothing different. If there is anything different, I will let you know. Okay. So don't worry about finding the particular section and all immediately. But what you should understand is that the same concepts that are discussed in that edition and this edition will be exactly the same. It's just location and all might be slightly up and down. That is not
No,
a
sir,
big
because we were doing atoms, molecules, and ions, but the periodic table things are there in the chapter in the first chapter. So
no. Okay. First chapter will be experimentation, measurement, and all. No?
So, but for us, it's there in the first chapter, like the periodic table and
Periodic table and properties are in the first chapter. Okay, fine. That's fine. Anyway, we have to discuss it at some stage. So atoms, molecules, and ions, the first few sections in my book, it has periodic table, a little bit basics, and then it moves on to some common properties of groups and elements. Okay, so what I want you guys to, don't worry about the book right now. We'll do a common, I'll send you the PDF for this one, right? And then we'll refer to this book. Okay, what I want you to focus on is what do you need to know about the periodic table? What are the things that you need to know? You need to know group 1A, group 2A. 1A, 2A is here, right? Then 3A, 3A, 3, group 4, group 5, 6, 7, and 8 is noble gases, right? So some of the basic elements in each of these groups you need to know. Okay, so I'm sure you already know most of this. So you know that it starts off with hydrogen here, right? And there is helium here. No, correct. 1s2 basically is helium, so you can either put it here or put it here, right? Then the second group starts with lithium here, and this one is beryllium. Lithium, beryllium. Then there is boron. Then there is carbon. Then there is nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine. And then there will be neon, I think. What you need to know is some of the major elements. So group 1A, for example, I know is lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, potassium, cesium, francium. And this is beryllium, magnesium, calcium. So at least till the first few elements, right? In this group, then boron, aluminium, gallium, and then carbon, silicon, germanium, nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, oxygen, sulfur, and selenium, I think. I'm not sure about this one. Make sure about what is here.
First selenium, then tellurium.
Selenium will be there. FClBri and neon, argon, xenon, radon, and so on, right? Here. So what you should be aware is what are the basic first three, four in each of these groups. There is a lot that is missing here. We have not yet done these elements. These are transition elements. So transition elements later when we study, we'll discuss it. But for now, we are going to be mainly concerned with the main groups. So these are the main groups 1 to 8. Okay. And most of the times you will be mostly concerned with the period. This is second period, period 2, and period 3. Most of the times it will be about period 2 and period 3. So period 3 will compose of these ones. And period 2 will be lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, these ones. And this is period 1. This is hydrogen and helium. So for till third period, mostly you'll be considering. So some of these elements and the way they are structured in the periodic table, it is useful to know this. So you should be aware of that. As you learn more and more of chemistry, what will happen is this will become easier because you will start to see the patterns and you will know more about the subject. Then it will automatically be in your memory what the order is, how they are. Right? For now, don't worry about it too much, but know that eventually you will sort of have to know this. Okay, so we have, so I think in chapter 2 for you guys, you will have the law of mass conservation and law of multiple proportions and so on, right? Those things you will have, the law of mass conservation, Dalton's atomic theory, right? Correct. So that is very simple concept. So Dalton's atomic theory was the first guy who proposed that matter is made up of atoms. Matter is made up of atoms, and there are some there are some rules that he had, that how reactions and all happen. The first rule was obviously something that scientists knew from before, which is the law of mass conservation. Law of conservation of mass. Conservation of mass. So that is obvious that mass cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. Mass can't be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. Later in chemistry, you will encounter reactions where mass is created or destroyed. Do you know about any such reactions where mass will be created and destroyed?
Just like nuclear reactions.
Right. So nuclear chemistry, when we study, so why? So basically, the reason why there are nuclear weapons and atom bombs and all, right? The reason it is so deadly is that the amount of energy released is a lot, because actually mass is converted to energy here by Einstein's famous equation, E is equal to mc square. Basically, E is equal to mc square. Imagine this equation, right? If you have c is the speed of light, then this c square becomes quite large, no?
Yes, sir.
Because c is 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second, right? So c square will be 9 into 10 power 16, right? So if you think about that, even if you have 1 gram of mass, 1 gram of mass will actually be too much mass to convert to energy, because 1 gram will be 10 power minus 3 into 10, 9 into 10 power 16. So that is a lot of energy, no? 9 into 10 power 13 joule, right? That is, how would you estimate this much energy? You can estimate it on the basis of thinking about how much water will be you will be able to boil, right? If this much energy is released, you will be able to boil off how much water with this much energy? 9 into 10 power 13 by 4200 joule per kg, right?
Yes,
Latent
sir.
heat of vaporization and all,
Yes, yes.
right? So imagine this is like enormous amounts, no? See, 9 by 42, even if you do 9 by 45, 1 by 5, so it is 0.2. So 2 into 10 to the power 10 kgs of water you can boil with that much energy, right? You understand? The number is quite high, okay? So this is just by converting 1 gram of uranium to energy, or 1 gram of whatever substance to energy. So obviously this doesn't happen, this much energy is not released, but in a nuclear weapon something like this could be released. And imagine if that happens in an instant, right? This much energy being released in an instant will destroy everything. So basically, law of conservation of mass is not violated technically, because this was earlier in 1800s and all, when people were discovering this, then this was the idea that mass cannot be created. But later, after Einstein discovered his law of E is equal to mc square, it became law of conservation of mass energy. Law of conservation of mass energy. So basically, mass and energy became interchangeable concepts, right? So they could be converted from one form to the other, right? So ultimately, the law of conservation of mass energy is still valid, because anything that has some rest mass, if I'm sitting here and I have a mass of some 70 kilos, let's say, then I have certain amount of mass energy, okay? So that mass energy total value will still be same, even in any reaction. Nothing can change the value of the total mass energy. Then the second law that people thought of was law of definite proportions. So these are some very basic things that people thought of in the 1800s. So not very important, but you sort of need to know just for the sake of historical accuracy. So this law of definite proportion says that atoms will combine to form molecules in definite proportions. So it will not be like today you will add 5 grams of water and 1 gram of oxygen, and tomorrow you will add 10 grams of water and 3 grams of oxygen, right? Always when
Yes,
you
sir.
want to create H2O, you will have to add basically 16 grams of oxygen with 2 grams of hydrogen. Okay, so people noticed this. So whenever they made something, whenever they made some compound, they found that the amount of reactants were always in some fixed ratio. So O is to H here was always in an 8:1 ratio by mass. And when you had an 8:1 ratio of oxygen and hydrogen, you got water. When you had a different ratio, when you had a 16:1 ratio, you got hydrogen peroxide. So for example, hydrogen peroxide is what? It is H2O2, right? So if you think of atomic masses, this will be 2 AMU and this will be 32 AMU, right? So the ratio is 16:1 here, no? Correct. So law of definite proportion was saying that for each compound, there will be a definite ratio in which the atoms will be reacting, like by mass. Ratio of the constituent elements by mass will be always fixed. That was that. There was also law of multiple proportions. Law of multiple proportions was basically saying that, I think I am saying the same thing. Yeah. So if two elements, right? If two elements, law of multiple proportions. Does anybody know what this law of multiple proportions is?
Sir, two compounds combine in multiple proportions to form different compounds.
So what is saying it? If suppose two elements are combining to form multiple compounds, right? Correct. Right. Then the ratios in which they compound, in which the elements combine, will be integer multiples of each other. So here they combine in the ratio 1/1, right? Here they combine in the ratio 1/2, right? Correct.
Yes,
And
sir.
2/5 is a little more complicated, but these ratios will be multiples of each other. So the law actually states elements can combine in different ways to form different chemical compounds whose mass ratios are simple whole number multiples of each other. So here you can say the ratio is 2/5, right? So mass ratios are whole number multiples of each other. So you can say that 5 times this and basically 2.5 times, right? So this is 0.4 and this is 1. So you can say that 5 times this and 2 times this. There will be whole number multiples of each other. So the idea is that the same two elements can combine in different ratios to form different compounds, right? If that is happening, then people from this guessed that, okay, if they are combining in whole number multiples of each other, right? Whole number multiples. Two atoms are combining in different whole number multiples and giving two different things, then that means that there must be some basic element that is being repeated. There must be some basic unit, no, that is being repeated. That is being repeated, right? Are you understanding why this logic makes sense?
Yes, sir.
So if I have some basic unit which I cannot divide further, only then will I have to use always that unit throughout in all my reactions, right? So if I have one oxygen atom and I cannot have 1.5 oxygen atom or 1.33 oxygen atoms, then the way in which nitrogen and oxygen will react with either be with one atom or with two atoms, right? So then you will be able to say that they will be in whole number multiples of each other, these ratios. So that helped Dalton basically guess that there must be some constituent basic unit of each element which retains the properties of that element. So that thing was called an atom. By the way, when this atomic theory of Dalton was proposed, none of the scientists of that age believed it. Like nobody believed in atoms till people actually started finding subatomic particles and people actually were able to observe some atomic effects. And that was almost towards the end of the 19th century and early parts of 1900s. Around that time, people started believing in the fact that atoms exist. So you can imagine that all of chemistry that you learn today is just 100 years old. It's like 100 years ago, nobody would have believed all this. And in 100 years, we have learned so much. So that is quite remarkable. Then later, people figured out that, okay, we started believing in this atomic theory, and then atoms can have constituent parts now. Now people started understanding, okay, fine, atoms make sense. Atoms build up all the elements and they build up matter. So what is an atom made up of? What is an atom made of, right? So these types of questions eventually led to the whole theory of atomic structure and how did we figure that out, right? That will be the subject of chapter 5 for us. That will be the subject of chapter 5 for us. So we will pause on that discussion till then. But we will go on to a slight detour from this stage where we'll discuss how to measure things, how to measure number of atoms. Number of atoms, basically the mole concept, right? So have you guys heard of what a mole is? Like what
Yes,
is a
sir.
mole of something? 1 mole of something is what?
So it's like 6.022
023
10 to the power 23
yeah,
particles of anything.
yeah, particle.
So okay, so 1 mole of something is basically these many
Particles
items
of that thing.
of that thing, right? So basically I can say 1 mole of carbon atoms or 1 mole of fans or 1 mole of anything. But it's just a way to denote this number, just like dozen is a number, right? Which denotes 12 of something. Just like that, 1 mole is a number that denotes these many of something. This number is called Avogadro's number. Avogadro was a famous physicist. Avogadro's number, sometimes written as Na. So 1 mole of something is basically Avogadro number of something. Now, this mole idea is useful in chemistry because the number of atoms and molecules in any tiny sample, that you see, the number of atoms is unbelievably large. Unbelievably large. So basically, if you think about Avogadro's number, right, 6.02 into 10 power 23 is more than the number of stars in our galaxy, possibly more than the number of galaxies in the universe. So this is a huge amount, right? And you have to realize that each mole of gas will have these many atoms. And if you think about it, there are so many moles of gas present in just the room that you are sitting in right now. So many moles of gas. So actual numbers are so huge that we'll use such a big number as a unit, right? The actual numbers of atoms and all are immensely large. So we'll have to use a very big unit here. This is a very big unit. And people have come up with a nice convention. Or basically the idea was that this number was chosen very intelligently. Do you know why this number was chosen? Why did someone think of using Avogadro number value as 6.02 into 10 power 23. I would just, if I was doing it, I would have just said Avogadro number is 10 power 23. If you wanted a big unit, just keep 10 power 23, and why not 10 power 20 to make calculations better, right? So do you guys have any idea why 6.02 into 10 power 23?
So it makes calculation easier because like
It makes calculations harder, no? Dude?
so easier because it's like the exact answer which comes when you divide like I'm not exactly sure what, but something.
Then you are not, I mean, what you have said is not very useful, right? At first glance, what you're saying is completely wrong because it makes all the calculations worse. If I have to multiply by 6.02 into 10 power 23, everything will be bad. Instead, I would choose a number like 10 power 20. No, every calculation will be nicer. Why not 10 power 20? Om, what are you thinking? Why 6.02 into 10 power 23?
I'm not exactly sure. I forgot what it was.
Okay. Okay, fine. So when people found out the mass of electron, proton, and all, no? People found out mass of electron, mass of proton, and so on. It came out to be very small values, right? This came out, I think, to be 1.67 into 10 power minus 27 or something. I'm not sure about this, but almost like this, something like this. These were very tiny values, okay? Now, people thought of, people already knew that all the other elements, all of the elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, so on, every element's mass could be expressed as a multiple of the mass of hydrogen atom. You understand what this statement means? Every element that you know of, the mass of any element can be thought of as sometimes the mass of a hydrogen atom. Mass of one atom of carbon basically is 12 times the mass of one atom of hydrogen. Okay. Are you getting this point?
Yes, sir.
Mass of oxygen is 16 times the mass of one atom of hydrogen. So people had earlier thought that, okay, so let's take hydrogen atom's mass as 1 unit. Okay. Then everything will have nice integer values, right? Carbon will be called 12 units. This will be called 16 units. This will be called 14 units and so on, right?
Yes, sir.
So they chose hydrogen as 1 unit and they called everything as 12, 14, 16, basically multiples of the hydrogen's mass, right? Great. But later they figured out that hydrogen has 1 proton plus 1 electron, right? So they actually did the calculation of this. And if you do this calculation, it comes out to be, see, 1 proton plus 1 electron will be how much? It will be, notice that this is 10,000 times smaller than this, right?
Yes, sir.
This is 10 power minus 31. This is 10 power minus 27, right? So approximately you can ignore this mass, right? When you take the mass of an hydrogen atom, right? So
Yes,
mass
sir.
of hydrogen atom came out to be roughly 1.67 into 10 power minus 27 kg, right? Correct. Now, this mass is inconvenient to use in any calculations. So what they thought was, let's take a large number of these particles, such large number that we create 1 gram of hydrogen, right? How many particles have to be taken to create 1 gram of hydrogen, right? Correct. So that particle was called Avogadro's number. so that you can say 1 gram of hydrogen will react with 8 grams of oxygen or 16 grams of oxygen. So how many particles are required? So divide 1 gram of hydrogen 10 power minus 3 kg by mass of one hydrogen atom. So 1.67 into 10 power minus 27 kg. So this will become 10 power 24 and divided by 1 by 1.6, right? So you can make it 10 by 1.6 into 10 power 23. Right? 10 by 1.6 is almost 6.02. Correct? This
Yes,
is
sir.
100 by 16, no? So 6 point something, right? So basically the convention that they decided on was, okay, I don't want to work with 1.67 into 10 power minus 27, this number kg of hydrogen, right? I don't want to react it with some weird number like that, oxygen to get water, right? What I want to say is 1 gram of hydrogen reacts with, let's say, 16 grams of oxygen, right? Correct. 1 gram of what hydrogen will react with actually 8 grams of oxygen. 8 grams of oxygen to give how many
Yes,
grams
sir.
of water? It will give some 1:8 is the ratio. So you will actually have 2:16 and you will get 18 grams of water, right? Correct. You want to have a calculation like this, but to do a calculation like this, you have to take many molecules, many atoms of hydrogen, no?
Yes, sir.
And how many atoms of hydrogen do you need to take? So they decided on a number. They decided on Avogadro's number, or Avogadro decided that let's take these many atoms of hydrogen. So that will help us convert 1 unit of hydrogen, 1 unit mass to simply 1 gram, right? If you take Na atoms, then 1 atomic mass unit becomes 1 gram. Are both of you understanding, or have I confused you? 1
Yes, sir,
AMU
understood.
is the actual mass of hydrogen atoms, but I want so many hydrogen atoms, Na atoms, so that its actual mass becomes 1 gram instead. I want to use 1 gram rather than 1 AMU, right? So this Na came out to be 6.02 into 10 power 23. Okay. Ahan, you are understanding?
Oh yes, I got it.
Okay. So that is the idea of the whole mole thing, and why the weird 6.02 into 10 power 23 number was chosen. So he will talk about some experiments here. He describes a little bit about the atomic structure. Like, I think some basic experiments are described. You should go through this chapter 2 in your book, the atoms, molecules, and ions chapter. Okay. What we will be focusing is, in the next class, it will be more of mole concept only, and we'll start doing some stoichiometry. Stoichiometry is basically reactions involving chemical reactions and understanding how much of something will be produced, right? How much of some reactant or product will be used or produced. Reactant or product will be used. So basically, we are going to spend some time on these mass relationships. So it is important to be able to predict how much of a reactant will be used to produce how much of a product. So we will use the mole concept. We'll be spending some time on mole concept next 2 classes probably. So just go through chapter 2, chapter 3. Chapter 2, chapter 3 reading is the homework. Okay. Just read as much as you can in chapter 2, chapter 3. We'll be solving some problems here. Everyone understands what they have to do, no?
Yes, I understood.
So go through that, and I will share the book that I have. this is the 7th edition, so maybe either we'll work with the 6th edition if I can find it somewhere online, or we'll work with the 7th edition. So I'll share this book with both of you. But as long as you have the physical book for the 6th edition, it's not an issue because almost everything will be the same. It's just the location and all might be slightly different. So just read up on this and we'll continue with the mole concept. The atomic atoms, molecules, and ions chapter is very basic, so I don't want to discuss too much. You have already probably done all this in your Allen 10th standard. Okay, that's all for now. I'll let you know for the next class. Hopefully, we'll do it on Sunday itself, next chemistry class. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, guys, that's all for now.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.